Join us and unwind with a good book. Welcome to Relaxing Reads.
Hello. Fresh off a trip down south.
Yeah. So nice to be reunited with you both. It's been a long time.
Hasn't it, though?
How is everyone?
Good. I can't believe it's, I can't believe spring is already here and we're getting into summer almost. It's weird how fast it goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 1 minute we're wishing the never-ending winter will just leave us.
I love this time of year, though. It's just that you get that optimistic feeling, It's that, okay, the warmer days are ahead. The longer days are ahead. You start to get excited, And it's like when you're coming out of December and you have like January, February, and March, you're like, oh, I can't wait till we get to spring. And it's the tease before summer. So it's kind of that feeling good time of year.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. I love the light we get in the evenings now, It's like,
isn't that wonderful?
I'm looking out at 7:00 for me here in Edmonton. I'm like, it's still light. I can still go do stuff.
And you get light so much later. I remember the one year I went to Edmonton, like Vancouver sunset would be like 9 and it was like 10:30 and it was still so bright.
It's crazy. Like the height of summer here in Edmonton, you can actually, it's like it kind of goes really dark dusk and then it starts brightening up again. Like it's weird. I mean, we're not in the Northwest Territories, but it kind of feels like that sometimes you don't really get complete darkness.
Yeah.
It just kind of fades out and then it starts, the sun is coming up in the east again. Here we go.
Yeah. Like you have a little power snooze and it's, oh, there we go. Okay, good to go again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Are we
my
ready
goodness.
to start?
Sure. Oh,
sure.
Boy.
I don't even know how to do this.
I know. How does this work? Okay. Hi, I'm Deb in Halifax.
Hi, I'm Simone in Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Tanya in Edmonton.
Well, our latest read, Here One Moment from Liane Moriarty, takes us on a short flight from Hobart to Sydney, Australia. After a delay and everyone is seated on the jam-packed flight, one passenger catches the attention of everyone. It's not the newlywed couple with the bride still in her wedding dress, the mom and her toddler son, or the well-dressed man anxiously checking his watch, or that young flight attendant celebrating her birthday. It's an older woman who walks down the aisle making predictions about how and when everyone on board will die. Some ignore her, others take careful note of her prophecies, but her actions will leave a lasting impact on everyone on board. Months after the flight, some of those predictions come true. The media gets a hold of the story and panic sets in. And here we go.
Wow.
I think it was a lot to digest, I think, but it was, I don't know, I think it's something that we all think about perhaps for a moment before or, once we get on board a plane, you look around at everyone and you kind of think, what's going to happen? Like, who are we? How is this going to unravel?
What is everyone's story? Right? Like when you look around when you're on a flight, you kind of try to figure out what everyone's story is, right? And depending on where you're going, could be a vacation destination, could just be a commuter kind of a thing. And for me, with this book, I was heading out to Mexico, and I actually have a fear of flying, so I actually did not take. I did not take this book with me. For that simple fact, because I just get weirded out. And sometimes, when I'm on a flight, I don't care about the takeoff and landing, which supposedly is the most, difficult part of any flight. I love that. I just don't like being up there because I feel like I'm just sort of like, okay, well, what do I do now? I look out the window and then, I try not to look at the flight attendants because I start thinking in my head, oh my gosh, does she look concerned? Does he look concerned? Are they going back to the, so I'm always looking for like these little signs, which is ridiculous. But, that's the thing about fear. It's not rational, right? And so I didn't take this book with me. And honestly, I was thinking, well, maybe I don't want to read this book. But when I got into it, I thought that Liane is such a delightful writer. And once I got into the sync of how she was writing, I really, really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same for me. It was, when I kind of read the synopsis about it, I was like, this looks interesting. And I really, it's a big book. It's close to 500 pages. So, you think that's a lot of information, and there is a lot of information, but it did keep, the story I felt kept moving. So there was always something to, want to keep going for, because it was like, what's going to happen? Are these predictions going to come true? It was kind of that edge of your seat excitement, but also not like a good excitement. It was like almost like I really hope something doesn't happen to this characters that I'm following that was predicted for this character. So those were like a bit of those scary moments, because it was, when she started telling people these things, it was scary. And I've never been to a psychic or anything like that. Never. And I think that could be part of it, is like, what if you get information you don't want to be told? And I know many people have gone and they've gotten really positive information, and it's really helped them in the direction they want to go in life. But for me, it's still, I do have a fear of that whole side of death and what could potentially go wrong, because I think sometimes I just live in a bubble. But yeah, like reality sometimes a reality check is tough. And I think this book did a great job of kind of making you feel all the things, maybe look at your life, and a lot of internal thoughts that I think some of us have, but we've never really shared. And that's kind of what was coming out in this book. But I thought she did a great job with the novel as well.
Yeah, me too. And I think when you travel, or, all the things leading up to traveling, the actual travel part, and then beyond, when you're on a holiday or vacation, you kind of, do a little checklist, whether it's in your head, in your heart, or on a notepad, about, okay, what's going on in my life? What's going on at home? What's going on in my present surrounding that I can either just soak up and enjoy it for the moment, or can I take this pause and apply it to what perhaps I don't love about how, things are happening around me right now? Or do I just kind of, okay, let's just keep it where we are because things are good. They could be better, but I don't want to push my luck. And I think that when you do travel and you look around at some of the people you encounter, you do compare your life, and it just makes you wonder about a whole lot more. It's almost, I don't know, sometimes when you're on vacation, maybe you were experiencing that, Tanya, it's almost like, fantasy. Like, is this really happening? Like, I just feel so at peace in this moment because you're away from the stressors and you can kind of toss things to the side. And I don't know, I always feel like I'm refreshed and I look at things differently. My problem is I don't continue to take that with me.
You snap out of it.
You get back into the regular routine again. It's like, wait a minute, what was it that I wanted to change? What was it? You get back into your comfort zone?
I did come back from my vacay very refreshed. Like, I actually felt like I'd been away. And of course, you go to a sun destination, you can't help but relax. And, and I'm such a wino. I love wine, but honestly, Mexico has shit for wine.
Yeah.
But, I'm just like,
yeah.
You know what? I was margarita girl, and I was quite happy with that. That's what they do.
Nice. Good.
And I ate tons of fish, which is really cool. So talking about this book where, this woman is sort of, predicting how and when passengers on this plane are going to die. And then we follow some of the characters. Like, have you ever gone to a psychic?
No.
Yes, I've gone to several, and I have some relatives who, I don't know if you call them clairvoyant or what, but they have seen things, and they've had a number of dreams that, I've had a couple of dreams that have come true. One of them was a job loss quite a number of years ago. I was working in this industry, working for a different company, and we kind of joked in the office because it seemed like there were a lot of layoffs happening, and we're, who's going to be next? Kind of, just joking around, but still wondering. And a couple of weeks later, I had a dream, and I came in the next day, and that same group I was talking to, I said, remember how we were talking about it? I said, I had a dream last night that I'm going to lose my job and this is how it's going to play out. And they're like, oh, no, 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 no. Well, a week after that, I lost my job. And I came into the office and it was the same people encountering me. And one of the women who was the assistant to the GM said, as soon as I heard, I thought of your dream. So I don't know where that comes from, but I did have a psychic tell me once if I had plans to go skydiving, that she would not recommend it. That week, I was planning to go skydiving with a couple of friends. They ended up going, but when a psychic tells you something like that, it's okay. Similar to the characters that are told, like, this is your date, this is how much time you have, and how it's going to happen. Even if you don't 100% believe it, it's still on your mind and you're thinking, I'm just going to be cautious. Did I really want to go skydiving? Is it worth it? What am I doing it for?
But
I didn't end up going.
It's so interesting because, like when you get that early prediction, like you did, like, okay, don't go skydiving. You're like, not going to do it. But then there's some people, if you're getting a prediction that you're going to live to 100 years old, similar to that little boy in the book where it was like he started living dangerously because you might feel like, oh, I got lots of time and you might do things you typically don't do. But then it's like, what if your fate changes and then something else happens? That's the other side of it because, in that book when she predicted the accident with her husband and the two friends, but then it didn't happen. But then later we find out.
Later it did, yeah.
Yeah, like it's so crazy. But yeah, and Tanya, have you gone to a psychic or a clairvoyant?
I actually have. I actually do think that there are people in this world who feel things and that can see things that we don't see. Like I really do, whether you call them like what Deb said, a clairvoyant or whatever. I do think that there are people more in touch with the world or that other part of the world. I don't know that I can't see. Going back to sort of my fear of flying, like I was in grade 7 and a good friend of mine at the time, she said, let me read your palm. So grade 7, this is ridiculous. I'm telling you this as like a 58-year-old woman now, but like at grade 7, she looked at my palm and she said, oh, Tanya, you're going to die in a plane crash when you're 30. So
no.
I have carried that. Like, it's ridiculous. At
wow,
least I hope it is.
That just gave me chills.
I know. I've carried that in my entire life. And maybe that's where my fear of flying comes from.
Yeah.
Like, she's not, I do still know her. She lives on the island now. And it's like, it's just a silly girl thing. But yet it has... I did say to myself at one point, like, fine, I'm never going to fly. Like some of these characters are like, okay, well, I'm just going to quit my job and go to Tasmania, and then I'm not going to, die in a workplace accident. There's that whole thing about fate cannot be fought. And that's what Sherry's mom said to her. And so you start to think it's like, well, I don't want everything to be fate. I don't want to believe in that because then if that is what it is, then you don't have a choice. And I really do believe that we do have a choice. So for me, it was like, Tanya, you will never go to all the places that you want to go if you don't get on a flight. Like, that's it. And but it's there. It's at the back of my mind. And I think about one of the characters. I think it's Sue, who Sherry said was going to die of pancreatic cancer. So she ended up getting all these tests and blah, blah, blah. And then she ended up, getting really sick and she thought, this is it, right? And then they find out it's just a virus. But the end of that particular story is that she's kind of let it go. She's not going to die of pancreatic cancer, but she can't keep watching. She can't stop watching the Facebook page.
Yeah.
To see what's happening. So in a way, it's still there. And I think that's what happens when you go to psychics and maybe they tell you something. It's like my brain, I can't get rid of it. Like, it's just always present. It's like this little voice, that's saying stuff. And it's like, I don't know. I'm so at odds with, like, I am at odds with death. I am not good. Simone, I'm sort of like you. I just want to live in a bubble. And I just can't imagine not being, And I have a friend of mine who's like, well, how do you know it's just like not another life form? I'm like, I don't want to hear about that.
I know. You know what?
So this book affected me in that I have a hard time with death. This affected me in that, these people have to deal with these things that they're being told, and the whole fear thing and the psychic thing. I don't know. There was a lot in this book that made it difficult for me to read. But then, like I said at the beginning, I actually enjoyed the writing, and I actually found Sherry to be quite an adorable narrator, or the main person in this book. She had quite the life. And I think that's kind of it too, is that, we all talk about regrets. There's tons of stuff on social about regrets, and it's like, just live your life. Go live your life, And I think that's what she did. She went and lived her life, and she had a whole bunch of adventures on the way. I think because she took chances, so.
Isn't that what life's all about? You have to take a chance, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny. We started out not liking her at all. Like, she was the death lady, this woman on the plane, well-dressed, but yet just standing there pointing at people and saying all these things, and they're trying to get a wrangle on her. And the flight attendants trying to be like, what is this woman doing? But you're right. Like, once we got into her story and you see that she's not a bad person, she just has this that intuition that day, and she was going through like a mental health crisis, and it just kind of blurted out, and she kind of later explains her reasoning for why she was thinking a certain way. But yeah, she turned out to be like a character you essentially start to understand why she is the way she is, and she's not a bad person really at all. But I came to really, enjoy her. But yeah, like Tanya, what you say about just death and living your life to the fullest. Like, I lost my dad when I was quite young. And ever since that day, I do really grasp the day. I really do spontaneous things. And people sometimes will ask me why I am the way I am. And I think because that lesson taught me and my family to just, you only have a certain amount of time, and you really have to live it. And I think if you're not, sometimes you can't always make the choices you want to make. But if you're in the general realm of like, am I happy? What can I do to improve my happiness? If I, God forbid, was to go tomorrow or in 6 months or a year, am I doing the things I want to be doing? Am I spending time with the people I really want to be around? And I think books like this are just a reminder that you might live forever, but the people around you might not. And so what are you doing in your day-to-day that kind of brings you joy? And it doesn't have to be big things, but it's, trying to have a day where you just feel like, oh, well, this day kind of sucked. It's like, well, what is the energy you're going to bring to the next day? And I think you have the ability to change it. And that's the one thing was about my dad, is my dad was just a fun, loving person, live life to the fullest every day. So it was like short life, but like fun, good life. And that's why I think, for my family, it's that whole way of being. We really like pivoted to every day is not promised. So what can you do? And how can you just be living your best life, essentially?
Oh, I love that. Your dad, it's like you're living for him. Like, he didn't get to enjoy this, but I'm going to. And, his spirit or energy is always with you. So I'm sure in some form he's able to take that as well. And I think it's, no matter what news you get, like for me, the job loss initially, it hit me like I've never been hit. It was, it was a loss. So it felt like it was a bit of a death for me, and death I've experienced as well, like my dad and other relatives and young friends. But it's how you take that and respond to it. That year I lost my job was the worst, but also the best in some very strange ways. I was able to travel and spend more time with my family, with some extended family. And I that's the year that I went to New Zealand and Australia, and I met all kinds of interesting people. I did get another job that led me to another job. And it's so interesting how you can be at the bottom of whatever that is, and feel at your lowest. But as you start to see one thing that appears to be wonderful and makes you feel a little better each day, like one step, baby steps, right? Every day is a new day and a new opportunity to see where that light is and how do I get to it and how do I give myself more.
I think it's a constant struggle. I think, we all hear the, these people always talk about, like, you only get one life. You only get one life. Like, if you're not happy, pick up and do something. But sometimes it's not as easy, right? It's not that easy to just go and just change your life. It's hard work, right? I mean, Deb, you had to. Your world was turned upside down and ended up having to go do other things, right? But you traveled and you reconnected. And I think sometimes it takes something like that almost for some people to just sort of get it. Like, I mean, I do tell myself, like, you only got one, but yet I'm the type of person that, I don't know, I have to really kind of be knocked on top of the head to do something, right? And it's a struggle. And I found this book, if anything, it is, it's examining a lot of characters. They all have very different lives. And, they're all going through, well, what if this is my last day, right? What would I do differently? And so they're asking themselves those questions. We're asking ourselves those questions as we're reading the book. And I think that's one of the great things about it, is that it's just sort of reinforcing that idea of, look, this is like, don't take life too seriously and just go after what you want, Be brave.
Be brave. And it's interesting the way they all kind of bonded with the Facebook page. Years back, our family went to Cabo San Lucas, and we got caught in a tropical storm, and it was terrible. Like, the hotel flooded. It was like one of the worst experiences ever. But it's almost like the bonded by trauma. For those of us who were there and wanted to kind of let people know that this resort didn't take the proper considerations into place before a tropical storm hits, like other resorts did, to keep their guests safe, we created a Facebook group, and we kind of bonded in that group, and were able to kind of figure out how to get the word out, so people were kind of aware that this could happen, and maybe not to choose a resort like that or something like that. And we still kind of message in there. So it's like we're kind of bonded by something that happens, because so often you go on a trip or an airplane, you don't have any connection with anybody on it or a resort, and you all go about your ways. But then when something like this happens, there are people you want to stay connected with, and because you've all experienced something together that was like not of the norm. And that reminded me a lot of this plane situation, that they were all trying to find each other, because it was like, hey, I'm not the only one who's like feeling a certain way, or with something that we went through. There are other people feeling the same way. And when you kind of have a collaborative community, it's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I liked in this book how like there's those connections, but I liked how the author made some of the characters connected. And you don't find out until the end of the book that they're like, oh, this person's connected to this person. This is a parent or whatever. And I thought that was really lovely to take some of those characters and connect them up at the end. And really a study on the human spirit.
It is, absolutely. I think, Tany, you had mentioned, one of those stories was the child, Timmy. It was Timmy, the character, right? But, as a parent, if you hear that you're going to lose your child at a very young age, what do you do? And I think the dad thought, okay, his wife, the mom, is going a little overboard. It's okay. But she made sure that her little guy, got the swim lessons, because it was supposed to be a drowning, according to the death lady, that this is how it was going to go down. And she just kept him in the pool. And then years later, we find out about Timmy. And I don't know if I want to throw it out there, but
and the death lady,
spoiler alert,
death lady was the biggest cheerleader, right?
Yeah.
Was there a certain storyline or character you felt kind of connected to? Because, I mean, there were 6 characters. A lot of people got, their predictions on the plane, but then we kind of follow the story of 6 main characters. Was there a storyline you really enjoyed?
I liked all the sex that what's-her-name Allegra was having with hot pilot Johnny.
Yeah, that was pretty nice, wasn't it?
I just thought it was like she was in this relationship only for sex, and she thought that he was this arrogant, pilot, and he ended up being like a really cool guy.
Yeah.
I don't know what story I connect. I liked them all kind of evenly. I guess Sherry. I really loved Ned. Her third husband. And I just love that they, Sherry's mom, when she was dying, she said, you something about, you've already met the love of your life. And she's like, what? How do I liked Jake, and I like, and then she finds out that, she meets this guy at a random party and finds out that he was in her university class in mathematics. And it ends up being he ended up being the love of her life late in her life. I think they got 35 years. But I just love how she'd been through so much. And then she randomly meets this guy who she'd met when she was in university. And then they get together and they travel the world and they're just like all over the place. And I loved how I just loved that relationship. I loved reading about that relationship. So I think that was the best part for me.
Yeah, she was. And I really loved when it was like a girl on a plane with the letter B will be there for you when you need her the most. And that part at the end was like, wow. And like you mentioned, Tanya, it was the interconnectivity of the characters. But that part was really special too. And yeah, and maybe it's because she couldn't quite predict her own death. She was living. And anything could happen to her in any of those situations. But it didn't.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting. We find out that Sherry's an actuary, right? Mm-hmm. So in a way, once you find that out, you kind of go, because she didn't say you will, she would say, I expect, or something, right? I expect you will die, blah, blah, blah. And that's sort of what an actuary does. They weigh the variables of all of these events and they go, well, we expect, given the data, that this is going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So she lives in a mathematical world. I thought it was interesting that she said that her and Ned had a beautiful relationship with Jill and Bert. I just love the name Bert. It makes me laugh. Anyway, they just and the four of them were like this foursome, and she said they were like a square, a perfect mathematical equation or something. And I thought she lives in that sort of mathematical world. She always has, So I think she's always sort of looking at how the numbers, right? The numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had her as she was explaining everything, in her mathematical mind. I kept thinking, why couldn't I have had her in high school? Because I have never been a math person, but I enjoyed all the formulas and it's true to life. Everything has a scientific formula if you break everything down. And the way she broke it all down made 100% sense to me, and math never makes sense to me.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I am not a math person at all, but that was definitely
I was until I hit grade 10. I got I didn't have to write finals because I was so good in math, and then I hit grade 10 and everything was lost. Mm-hmm. I actually had to get out of school. I actually went back to school after graduating because I didn't get my advance because I failed math of all things. And I had to get a tutor to help me with math. And then I went and got my advanced diploma after that. But it's like, wow, how can you go from not having to write finals to completely, screwing everything up in high school? I guess that's just hormones.
Yes, right? Lucky us.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's as we go back and forth, I was, at times I was having a moment, I think because I was trying to do other things while I was into the book. So there were times when I was a little confused, but it made sense as well because you're trying to figure out the characters on the plane, on your flight, right? We're not sitting with these people, these folks, and talking to them during our flight, then we don't learn much about them. So I think in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, if I met up with them at this resort or at this, the bar in the airport, then maybe I'd know a little more instead of just judging them for the way that they rushed onto the plane and, stuffed their bag somewhere. But I think it's first impressions about all of these characters, and first impressions can mean a lot to a lot of people. But then once you start unraveling or peeling back the layers, and this woman, I felt the same way. When she was walking down the aisle, I thought, how rude, how odd, what is this woman all about? And yeah, she turns out to be such a lovable character and so adventurous. And she had, so many, I think, elders in our life that we meet or that we have in our family, once you hear their stories a lot over the years from, when you're a kid, I'm like, I've heard that before. But then you hear it again because you're really listening to the words. It's not just a story. So I love the way that we were introduced to her in this kind of abrupt way. But then we went back and it was like she took us into her life. And so this is how it rolled out.
It just makes me think, we're talking about meeting people on vacation and sometimes, you're letting loose a little bit. It just makes me think, what if people lie? Because you don't know these people. What if they tell you a story that's not necessarily true about them or where they live and what they do? Like, I wonder if there's people that just kind of want to be someone different when they're on vacation. Like, that just came to my mind. I don't do that, but I just think, for people who are a little more adventurous, you don't really know.
Wow, we would never know, would we?
Yeah, we would never know.
Random stranger, they could say anything. You're sitting at a pool and someone strikes up a conversation with you. Like, how would you?
You don't know their real names, what city they're from, what they do for work. They might tell you this information. You might think, wow, that's really neat. I wish I could have their life. That sounds amazing. And then what if it's not?
I've never thought of that, but I bet there are so many that we've met, and that was the case.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you and your girlfriends, when you were in your 20s and when we started going to the bars downtown, there were a few of us that would use a different name just to kind of like, keep safe and let's not give out, all of our personal information unless it's, it's going really well.
Yeah.
But some friends like created a different character or different persona just because it's like, okay, this is a different time. And then we go back to campus or wherever we were living at the time. And okay, we're back. Everybody's back safely. And what a fun night it turns out to be.
Well, and in this book, that podcast guy, there was a character that said that, he was on the flight. But as it turned out, he was lying. He wasn't on the flight. He was just trying to get,
I was trying to remember him. I was like, wait, where was he? Did I miss that?
I thought that too. I thought, I don't remember him. And then you find out that, he wasn't on the flight at all. So, there's people lying, about who they are, what they do, where they are, all that kind of stuff.
But faking your own death for likes, that's a bit.
I know.
That's a bit too much lying.
There's a lot of stuff happening like TikTok and, all kinds of social media. What do they call themselves?
Influencers, yeah.
Influencers,
who are looking for those likes and those, those ads. And so perhaps there's a lot of that going on. I liked how it was very present. Like there was a lot of things that were very present and relatable to what's happening right now in the world.
There was, I think at the very beginning of the book, which actually made me laugh. It was kind of before I started getting really into it, but I think it's like page 5 or something. It talks about, all the things Sherry did not do when she got on the flight. So it's all these crazy things that happen on flights, and it just made me laugh. It's like, no, she didn't have sex with another passenger. No, she didn't light up a cigarette like it was 1974. No, she didn't. I thought, oh my goodness. And I'm going, yep.
Yeah.
Like what those flight attendants have to go through. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
I don't think I could be captured on a big tube in the sky and have to deal with people like those flight attendants had to deal with some of the people on that plane.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's all about safety. Like once the doors close on a plane, it's not about entertaining us or servicing us. It's about like, how am I going to get these people? Like, how am I going to keep them safe with all their antics going on when I have to focus on what else is going on? How much longer before we land?
And it seemed like you always would see those characters. There's always going to be the mom with multiple kids. There's always going to be a crying baby. There's always going to be an elderly couple on the plane. There's always going to be like maybe a newlywed couple or a hot couple. Like it was like you can, every flight you get on, you just see the mix of people around you and you're like, yep, this is the group of who we are. It's just so fascinating that you think that like you are with these people in the sky for such a long period of time and then you all just go your separate ways. Like and it's like, how many flights could you potentially have been on with the same people and connected again, but you have no idea. You don't know them. You don't remember them. It's just the way like the universe works and where we are at what time in our journey, and those kind of things always trip me up. But I don't know if I would want anyone to predict my time. I don't know if it would change things for me, but I feel like if someone put fear in you, I don't know if you'd want to live with that fear. If someone just gave you kind of like a general, hey, I don't think you're in the right career, maybe you want to pivot, or, if it was you're having relationship issues and they're like, I see someone else for you, maybe that kind of info I'd want to know, but not like age of death, cause of death. No, thank you.
I see you leaving. I see you leaving.
You're like, leaving what?
Was it the mother that kept saying that?
Yeah.
With all her readings? Like, I see you leaving.
I see. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Her mother and her auntie Pat.
Auntie Pat. Yeah.
Pat?
Auntie Pat. Yeah. I thought she was a great character. So many great characters in this book. And I think they're all relatable. They're all relatable. I think anybody who reads this book would be able to go, yep, I know that person, or that's happened to me, or I've had a reading, or I know somebody who, I think there's a lot in this book for everyone who's going to pick it up and read it.
Yeah, and we were saying Liane Moriarty, she wrote Big Little Lies, and of course that turned into a very popular TV show. I haven't read that book, but I could see this into some kind of a TV series or a movie, because it would just be so interesting to see all these lives intertwined and then how it all ends up. But that would be really cool if that ever happens.
Who would play Sherry?
Oh,
I don't know.
That's a good question. So many different versions of her.
Meryl Streep, could it be her? I don't know. Because she's got that whole Devil Wears Prada in the beginning vibe, where she's fashionably dressed and she's got the short hair and the piercing eyes. But then later we got to find the softer side of her, or it'd be interesting to see.
And I just have to go out on a side note here. I love the fact that she's seeing Martin Short. I just love that couple. I do.
Could we
get Meryl Streep and Martin Short, you're like, what? But hey, he's funny.
Yeah,
he is.
And women like funny, right?
Women love funny.
Yeah.
Women love funny.
Could he play Ned? Could he play one of her love
Yes, he could be Ned.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, because they did that, when she was with Ned, they seemed to have such an incredible time together. And when you see Meryl and Martin out together, they see, even if they're supposed to be hiding whatever relationship they have, they always look like they're having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
We'll see what happens. But all in all, great read.
It was, lots to think about, whether we follow along with a psychic's predictions or prophecies or just kind of keep on going, but gives us something to think about. I think that part of me thinks that we all have a number, but, then you look at, when younger people are lost, it's like, no, I don't think it was their time. I think it was what was happening around them. And I think there are certain circumstances that, things can change. But life is all about questions, isn't it?
I know.
It is.
And sometimes it's easy to
get out there and live it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Sometimes we're on the hamster wheel and we're on autopilot, and I can find this happening, with just everyday schedules, my life, work, kids. And then sometimes you're like, get off the wheel, go do something for yourself, break the pattern a little bit. And I think that's when you just got to kind of recheck in with yourself.
Yeah. Wine night with the ladies sometimes helps.
Yes.
Totally.
Not in Mexico where the bad wine is.
Mexico.
No, right. Then we do the margaritas.
Yeah.
And it's margaritas all the time.
Thank you once again for joining us on another episode of Relaxing Reads. Until next time, bye.
Thank you for kicking back and relaxing with us. We hope you'll join us again on Relaxing Reads.